Hey guys, and welcome to Runeterra. My name is Jaggerus, and while the game may currently be unavailable, I do still have some deck videos for you guys going up on the channel to just give you a little bit of an idea of what the game is all about in case you have missed it. And today I have a deck from a player called Qupor, and this is an aggro deck. It is really quite fun to play, and you basically just want to go face, right? You're going to try and hit them as hard as you can, as quickly as you can. So, we are running a Nexus and Piltover and Zaun combo list, which involves Draven, Jinx, and Darius as our champions. So, in terms of our cards, we're going to be doing some discard stuff, and we're going to be playing a lot of kind of low-value cards that deal decent amounts of damage. So, the way that Jinx works is when your hand is empty, she levels up, and when she levels up, what happens is she then at the start of the round draws a card. So you empty your hand, and then at the start of the round, as long as you have Jinx, you're actually drawing 2 cards. And then whenever you empty your hand in the first time of each round, you then create a super mega death, which is this card here, which you can then use to deal 4 damage to the enemy Nexus and 1 damage to all other enemies. So as you can see, pretty good for going face. And Jinx actually synergizes really nicely with cards like Augmented Experimenter, because when we play this, you discard your hand, which will then trigger Jinx's level up condition. Then you draw 3 cards, and you can deal 3 damage to anything, so that also includes the Nexus. So this is kind of a core component of this deck, but there are other ways that you can win just by kind of hitting your opponent. So we have Jury Rigs. Jury Rigs, when they are cast or discarded, which typically you're going to do, they will summon us a 1/1 Scrap Scuttler. It's a little crab robot. We have the Legion Rearguard, which is a 3/2 for 1 mana, which is pretty strong, right? But you can't use it to block. But he is really good at hitting them in the face. Then Legion Saboteur, again, is a 2/1, and when we attack, you also deal 1 damage to the enemy Nexus. So, you know, we're going to be hitting the Nexus, like I said. Same with the Legion Grenadier. This is a 3/1, and when it dies, you deal 2 damage to the enemy Nexus. We then have Mystic Shot, which we can use to deal 2 damage to anything, which is very useful for clearing the board or just hitting the Nexus. We have the Sump Dredger, and in order to play the Sump Dredger, we have to discard a card, such as, say, the Jury Rig, which is quite nice. You can also discard Draven's spinning axes. So if we have Draven, he's a 4/3. And when we play him or strike, he creates a spinning axe. And what the spinning axe does is when you play it, you can discard a card and give an ally +1 for the round. But you can also use the spinning axes as a discard target. So if we wanted to play the Sump Dredger, we could discard a spinning axe because Draven creates them quite easily. And you're not usually, trying too hard to level up Draven. He's more just there to go face and to give you cards to discard. Although if you do use the spinning axes on him and then he strikes, then you can level him up that way. So we have the Arachnoid Sentry, which has stun, and we can use this to kind of delay any big units our opponent has while we try and hit them in the face. Culling Strike kills a unit with 3 or less power, so we can use that to remove enemy targets. We have Get Excited, and when you play this, you have to discard 1, such as the spinning axes, and will deal 3 damage to anything, such as the Nexus. We have Vision. When cast or discarded, which is typically how you're going to play it, it grants your allies +1, and it's a burst spell. We then have the Chempunk Shredder. You just play him, and you deal 1 to all enemies. He's not bad. He's kind of okay, and he's a little bit of a filler card. And we have 1 Darius, because I don't think you need 3 Dravens, and he's just a strong card. So he levels up when the Nexus has 10 or less health, the enemy one, which is quite likely if you're going face, and when he levels up, he then actually does 10 damage rather than 6/5. He becomes a 10/5, and with Overwhelm, it's pretty powerful, right? It's pretty powerful. So, yep, that's more or less the deck. So let's get into a game, and I will showcase this deck in action, and shout outs to Qupor, who did make the deck. I'm just showcasing it for you guys. Okay, so in our opening hand, we have 1 Jinx, and I actually do really like to hold on to the Jinx because she is a very strong card in the deck. We have a Legion Grenadier, which I'm going to keep, and then I think I'm just going to replace the 2 3s. Draven is nice, but I think Jinx is more important, and I think if you're keeping a 4 and a 2, you maybe need to try and find, some lower cost cards in order to have a better early play. As is, we found another Draven and a 5, so not quite what we wanted to find for the early game. Going into this first round. Now, I've turned auto pass off so that I don't give my opponent information about my hand. So what I'm just going to do here is pass rather than have it happen manually. So they have an Unscarred Reaver. When I survive damage, it gets +3 damage, or +3 attack, sorry. But as it is, they can use that to block and then try and make it stronger. But we do have options to try and kill it, such as the Legion Grenadier. So if they do try and attack with it, it's not too much of a problem. Our 1 mana is now in the bank for spells. So, even though we didn't play anything, it's not a huge issue. And if you're at all confused about what's going on in the game, I suggest you check out my first impressions video, which will explain more or less what is going on. So this is a nice little combo. They played Crimson Aristocrat to deal 1 to an ally and then give it +2. And now this is a 5/2, which doesn't really look like a lot of fun for us. So possibly the best thing to do here, actually, is just... we could just Mystic Shot it, but for now I think I'm just going to play the Legion Grenadier, because I can always block it with the Grenadier. And in doing that, trigger the Nexus damage, which I think is quite nice. So if they do choose to try and attack,
if they mattered, I'd let them
we could just block and trade it out. And I think this is actually a totally fine trade for us. I think units which have like very low health but high damage, you're typically using them to block and kill things that are more of a problem. So in that instance, I don't feel too bad about the trade. And now here we are at 3 mana, which means we can get our Draven on the board and then have those Spitting Axes to discard with things like the Sump Dredger, should we wish to. So let's do that.
It's Draven time.
And Draven, there we go. This happens every time you play him and he attacks. We do have quick attack, so we're gonna hit something first if we do attack, and if our opponent doesn't block, then we're gonna hit them for 4, which is pretty nice, right? So it's looking pretty good here. Looking pretty good. Spitting Axe is free to play, but you do have to discard a card. Okay, so they played a spell. Deal 1 to anything. Okay, so they're gonna hit our Draven for 1. That's fine. I mean, he's a 4/2, but he still has quick attack, so he can't be blocked by the 2/2. It'll just kill the 2/2, and then maybe they have more options to kill them. But again, we just hit the Nexus for 4. We got another Spinning Blade, which is pretty nice. So we got lots of discard targets, and all in all, I'm pretty happy with the situation. I think on the next turn, what we're gonna look to play is the Sump Dredger. And the Mystic Shot. And basically now we're going to start to try and get our hand a bit emptier in order to play Jinx and then the Augmented Experimenter. Okay, so this is now a 4/1. We are going to pass, which I think is kind of fine. They're now on attack. We're on defense. We do have the Mystic Shot here. We can use to deal 2 damage, which is nice. So we're not really worried about this. If we had a better, if we could play the Chempunk Shredder, actually, that's going to deal 1 to all enemies, which is not too bad. So I think for now, let's just play Sump Dredgers. And even if we have to take a little bit of damage to the face, I think ultimately for our strategy, it's okay. And because we have lots of like low mana cards, it's quite easy to empty your hand, all things considered.
I'm out of their league.
Okay, so
I seal this by sword.
he can choose who blocks him, but obviously opted not to. I mean, we do want to use the Mystic Shot, right? I was going to say we can maybe kill this with the Chempunk Shredder this turn, but maybe we just want to zap it for now. In which case we can block this like this. We can deal damage to this to stop it from attacking. We could obviously discard and give an ally more attack. Actually, let's do that. And then play this. Can I play this on here? Give an ally. Oh no, that's my cards in hand, I guess. Maybe it only works on cards in hand. Am I being slightly silly? Huh, maybe I'm being slightly silly. No worries, no worries. We'll just block this then. And then that'll do. Pretty happy with this overall. Like, Braum is not doing anything is the thing. He has to survive damage, but for some reason they decided not to pick who was blocking. So all in all, pretty fine. And now we will pass. Slightly confused, because usually, maybe in combat you can only use it on cards in hand, perhaps. Okay, so he's dealing 1 damage, he's going to kill my Sump Dredger. Which we're kind of, again, we're still kind of fine with. So we'll just let this happen. We'll let this happen, and then we will pass. And our opponent has passed. And now we have 5 mana. So, this is actually not a bad hand for us. We have a couple options. We can get the Chempunk Shredder. But I don't know if I really need to do that. We could play the Sump Dredger, but that's going to put us on 3. And then if we play the Jury Rig, that's not ideal. The other thing we could do here is just play Jinx. Right? We could just play Jinx. And then play the Augmented Experimenter and just discard our hand. The other cards in our hand aren't you know, super important for the strategy. I'm a little bit nervous with playing Jinx about her dying, but, you know, there is a risk that you have to take.
Rules are made to be broken.
So let's just play this.
Or people.
You should try blinking sometime.
Oh, they're having a wee chat.
Oh, great.
When I'm summoned, deal 1 damage to all other allies. Okay, so he took 1 damage. So we have quick attack, but the problem with quick attack is that if they block, we have a problem. But we do have the spinning axe. Can I even use that on one of these? I'm not 100% sure if I can, honestly.
God axes need fixing.
I guess the only way to find out is to try. Because we do have a chance to do something if they choose to block.
You better bleed.
So now we can play the spinning axe, discard the jury rig, and then make Jinx a 5. So by doing this, what we do
Time for the moneymakers.
is we hit this and kill it, which is pretty good. So we will just kill his Crimson Awakener. Yeah, another spinning axe, which is lovely. And then on the next turn, we can play our Augmented Experimenter and level up our Jinx, which I think is quite exciting. So, you know, we're going to discard a bunch of cards, but then we'll be drawing 2 per turn, which is a pretty big deal. Okay, so he's playing Culling Strike to kill my crab, which I'm totally fine with. That's like expensive, you know, they spent a lot of mana to do very little. So let's play the Augmented Experimenter, and we'll deal 3 damage to the enemy Nexus.
I'm on the verge of something.
So I think this is quite nice. We then discard our hand, and then we will draw 3 more cards as well. So it's not even like we lose out particularly. Okay, this is fine. So I guess this still triggers. I mean, it's a skill, right? Yeah, so it does still trigger. I didn't think that it would stop what I just did.
We're doing it!
There you go. Look at that. Just Jinx thing. So she leveled up. So we lost the card, but it doesn't really matter because his effect's still triggered. And then we've drawn into Get Excited and a couple of Culling Strikes, which isn't too bad. And if he does choose to attack with Brown, we can. I mean, I guess he can make him take 4 damage off of Draven, but actually opting to pass then instead. So now we'll see the power of Jinx, because we draw a card, and then because we have Jinx, we draw another card. So now we have a lot of choice, right? Which is quite exciting. So we're in attack, and he actually only has 7 strength in his core. So let's just go face, right? I think going face here is quite clever because he can only block one of these with Braum. And yeah, there we go. He's going to surrender. And if he did block, he would have then been able to use the Get Excited to hit the core and deal more damage. And yeah, that's how you play aggro, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pretty spicy deck, I would say, and it's a lot of fun to play. I do quite enjoy it. So yeah, that's more or less it. And if you did enjoy the video, you can always hit that like button, and hopefully this will give you an idea of, you know, some of the sort of decks that you can play going forward with Runeterra. You can always find me on Twitter @Jaggerus and on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jaggerus. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!